My name is High Chief Ayoademilua. I happen to be one of the 9 high chiefs in Ikogosi. And before government acquisition, the land where the Ikogosi One Spring Resort is situated used to belong to the Asauye family. I happen to be the current Asauye. At the same time, I was the managing director for almost 4 years and presently the community relations manager after the concession of Ikogosi One Spring to Glossent Hospitality Services. Uh, Talking about stories or history of Ikogosi One Spring Resort, we have 3 kind of stories we can talk about Ikogosi One Spring Resort. We have the genealogy or how it became publicized, how it became known to the world through the Baptist mission, the Nigerian Baptist mission. There was a man whose name was John Sidney Maggie. He was a reverend. So that's the genealogy. And we have the myth and we have the scientific story. So those are the 3 stories we can talk about Ikogosi One Spring Resort. I will quickly gloss over the genealogy, how it came to be. People have been coming to Ikogosi One Spring when they discovered the phenomenon a long time ago, but nobody got to know about it worldwide. It was when Reverend John Sidney Magee came. He was an American missionary from Kentucky. When he came around in the 50s, because he heard the story about the unusual occurrence of a warm and a cold spring flowing side by side. So when he came here, my forefathers were converted in the early 1900s to Christianity. So when he saw the phenomenon, he decided that he was going to publicize it to the world, for the whole world to know. So he requested that, he wanted to make a youth camp around here so that people would be coming. It would be a form of tourist center for people, at the same time serving as a mission camp for Nigeria Baptist Convention. So out of sheer magnanimity, my people gave out the land free of charge to the Nigerian Baptist Convention. And Reverend Magee started building, he built the swimming pool, he built some buildings there that have stone bricks. But along the line, the Nigerian government felt a lot could be realized through tourism. And this place was like, what's it called? Gold untapped. So they felt, okay, maybe there was a petition around 1973 that Dr. Tai Sholari wrote, because he came here and he requested that they open the chalet for him and his students. But, he was denied because Reverend Magee gently told him that it was meant for mission purposes only. Along the line, he felt there was appetite in Ikogosi, because since he saw white people, he got to the seat of power and fired a petition that there was appetite in Ikogosi, blah, blah. At the end of the day, the government started having developing interest in this place. So around 1973, that same year, they gave a notice to Reverend Magee, who was managing this place, that the government was taking over. So Reverend Magee had to retire from Nigeria in 1977, and it naturally became that of the federal government. The federal government transferred it to Ondo State government because there was no Ekiti State government then. When they separated the Sami streams of Ekiti and Ondo states, it naturally belonged to Ekiti State. But before that time, Ondo State government felt that they needed to make the place grow, because at the twilight of General Olusegun Obasanjo's regime, he invested in the states, invested in tourism potentials of the states. So he gave them some money, and out of the money and land, they built a zoological park to boost the tourism experience of this place. It was Commodore Abiodun Olukoya was the governor of Ondo State then. A very sad occurrence happened. The lions in the zoo pounced on their maker, their caregiver, and they devoured him. So the governor got wind. There was no telephone then, mobile telephony. So he got to know. So he rushed down to the scene. He saw them feasting on the carcass of the unfortunate man. He ordered the soldiers to kill the brutes. That was the end of the pride. And the zoo just went down like that, right from the second gate down to the shopping mall. We had a zoological park then. And along the line, successive governments came. The first military administrator of Ekiti State, Atada Yusuf, was interested in this place. He made some efforts, but it was the first executive governor that actually did something tremendous. Though the federal government had built in the 70s, the first, apart from the Reverend McGee's buildings, the federal government built 2 buildings of 4 chalets very close to the swimming pool. We call it, till today, we call it the Western Villa. Later on, they built another group of buildings that we have 32 suites there on the left side, if you are going towards the Pole, at the other side of the road, very close to the Adme building. They built that. But the government of Adebayo built where we refer to as the villa today, up above, just on the way after the swimming pool. We have 14 rooms and chalets there. But it was during the first regime of Governor John Kayode Fayemi that the tourist center reached the highest crescendo it has ever reached. It was at the peak of whatever, because the government pumped a lot of public funds into the place to develop it. But, naturally, government has no business in business. So the government that succeeded his regime, it was booted out during the first regime. So they didn't share the same view. So the government did not even look at the side of the resort throughout the years. But fortunately, fortune smiled on the resort when Fayemi came for the second term after an interregnum. And because of his discovery of government having no business in business, he decided to concession the place out to a private investor. So fortunately, the first investor did not perform. After a year, it was removed. The MOU was removed or revoked from him. And the second investor happens to be Glossient, that has spent a lot. I can tell you, I don't have the figures, but I can tell you Glossient must have spent well over 1 billion in reviving the glory, in restoring the glory, the lost glory of Ikogosi One Spring Resort. And everybody is excited. So presently, Ikogosi One Spring Resort is being managed by Glossient Hospitality Services. That is that about the genealogy, so to speak. But talking about the scientific, let me quickly gloss over the scientific. In 2019, I was a tour guide to some students from University of Benin. And one of them, a very smart girl, was like, "Sir, don't you think there is probably a dormant volcano at the bedrock of this water that's heating up a cold water, refining it and making it warm?" Fine and dandy. If there was a dormant volcano, there must have been traces of maybe a slight eruption, or maybe the constant washing of the water over the dormant volcano will have subdued it. We are walking on one morning and discovered that we have a cold spring. But for years, this spring has been flowing endlessly. It doesn't get dry. No matter how dry the drought is, it doesn't go dry. So I just gently told her that Ikogosi One Spring is a phenomenon. It's like a riddle, shrouded in mystery and hidden in an enigma. Don't just try to understand it. It's Aditu, what the Yorubas call Aditu Olodumare. So when Gosi Waters wanted to start bottling Ikogosi, they bought the Ikogosi water, they took a sample to NAFDAC. And NAFDAC was like, "Why will you bring an already treated water to us? They said, no, it was not treated. They did not believe until they got here and they discovered that it was not treated. That is what they leveraged on. And they decided to doubly filter, the Ikogosi is with double filtration. That is why it's costlier, it's crispier in the mouth than any other table water. That is that about the scientific aspect. The most interesting part is the myth. So many have been written about the myth of Ikogosi One Spring. But like I told you, whatever you hear from my mouth, you're hearing from the horse's mouth, because this is my land. And I work here at the same time. In 2016, when I was made a chief, something happened. Some youths, they had a night party at the poolside, and out of youthful exuberance, they went to the source of the spring that you can see visibly. They smoked hemp, they threw the stub into the source, and they had sex there. And the deity got angry. In a night, close to 7 trees fell, blocking the ways down to the source. Because when we were growing up, I've lived for well over 50 years. In fact, conveniently, I can say I've known this water for like 54 years. Because if I was very young then, So I've been coming here. We were so much in love with this place. And for people to come and desecrate the place was uncalled for. So they called me. I was still in Lagos then. They called me. I came. The Kabiyesi, the king of Ikogosi, gave me an assignment. The community bought 50 afara seedlings that we should go and plant and reforest the areas because the shade was sort of debased. So we started the journey. By providence, I became a worker here. It was unplanned for, but coincidentally, but I didn't reject the offer because I knew it was my ancestors that was calling. And I now had the opportunity of interviewing some elderly ones who knew about, when we talk of places like this, you can only rely on oral history. Oral history is like folklores. They're like myths. What are myths? Myths are stories that we Africans or people, we human beings, that we weave, that are woven around natural phenomenon that we cannot readily explain. So there were oral histories or the myth. The myth has it that several years back, a man, an Ife prince, but he was a hunter. His name was Ogongon. He was on a hunting expedition when he discovered the unusual water. Maybe he heard the sound of water and he was thirsty. I felt, okay, let me just go and have a cool drink from a spring that was making this rush. And he discovered warm water. He was surprised. He rushed down to tell his people, come and see something I saw. They felt maybe the gods were angry with them. They decided to consult the Igugu of that time, which was Ifa. So it was Ifa that told them that, okay, several years back, there lived a man around here who was a blood relation of Ogongon. His name was Aokpereje, Olobesilode. That's Aokpereje, the one with the machete of gold. He was so rich that his hunting knife was made of, what's it called? Bronze, and the shaft was made of gold. So he lived around here. The myth has it that practically all the trees you see here were planted by the deity for healing purposes. He decided to settle down here. His first wife was Awele. Awele was heavy, dark, not very tall, but heavily breasted and with the dere. And this man was a hunter, like I said. He was a subsistence farmer. He was a lover of palm wine. So because of the abundance of raffia palms around here, he decided, okay, let me just tap my wine and settle down here. Above all, he was a healer. He was so very vast in making use of herbs to heal people. And he had the magical powers of conjuring both cold and warm water for healing purposes. So his first wife, Awele, did not give him a child. After some time, Awele advised him to get another wife. Maybe that one will have a child. he married Orosun. Coincidentally, the two of them got pregnant almost at the same time. One had a boy child, the other had a girl child. The boy child was Olosun. The girl child was Ora. When Ora became, because she was a tomboy, when she became of marriageable age, the father, because of peculiarities, she was a tomboy, she was so troublesome. She could engage any of her mates, either boy or girl, even elderly ones, in fisticuffs and beat the hell out of them. So, because of that, the father knew that it would take a very powerful medicine man to tame her shenanigans. She got married to a herbalist from Elisha, leaving the father, the two mothers, and the brother. The brother was a community head. She was a good youth leader. That is why some people defer to him. Olosun, that is the one I'm talking about now. Some people refer to him as the first leader that was trying to unify the communities when he was there. But Ogongo never met him. So, at a point, the father, that was our parent now, knew that he would soon join his ancestors. And like powerful people of those days, he felt dying with his powers would render him with no memories. People would not have memories of him. So he decided that, okay, with these powers, I must do something. Like, we knew that, okay, we were told that Ogun entered the ground. Shango, some people say they hanged themselves, some people say they entered the ground. So he decided, okay, instead of turning to a rock or to a mountain or entering the ground or things like that, let me just turn to a water that be flowing, wielding the therapeutic powers that will be healing continuously. So people will be coming, as they've been coming to see me when I was in the human body, they will be coming to fetch the water for healing purposes. So when he entered the ground that day, hot water, because he used to conjure both warm and cold water for healing purposes, it was warm that started coming out. And the family members were like, Daddy, please don't go. He came back to a human form and said, okay, if you don't want me to leave, my time is made. I'm done. My mission is complete. I will give you the power. So you too could turn to water and join me in my sojourn. But with a proviso, take the medicine to Elisha and give my daughter. When Olosun rushed down to Ora in Elisha, because Daddy has turned to water. She was so excited, expecting to come here and meet a very mighty river like the Niger. But she was disappointed when she saw a very small stream. You mean my daddy, with all the powers, turned to water and became something like this? She started abusing the old man. And in anger, that one, in his human form, used his machete of gold to make a very deadly mark on her legs. So she rushed out, Ora rushed out of Ikogosi in great anguish. We still see like valleys that they refer to as where Ora, in great anguish, passed through out of Ikogosi. We call it Yara. It's still there. So Ora got to Elisha and became the Ora stream in Elisha. Ora stream is still in Elisha till today. So when the three of them, now they saw, okay, we turn to water like Daddy. When I say the three of them, I mean the two wives and the son. Olosun became a flowing stream. The temperature of its own water was not as warm as the father. Probably because she has the DNA of a cold mother and the father, because the two women became cold springs. But they were flowing in different directions. It was like, hey, when we were in human form, it was a very united family. Why must we now turn to water and be flowing in different directions? They said, okay, let's come together and flow together. So the father and the boy formed the meeting point of the warmer and the warm springs. The two women, Awele, the coldest, Orosun, the cold, formed the meeting point of the colder and the cold springs. And they decided to come together and form the romantic embrace at the meeting point of warm and cold. And they decided to flow together as a family. That is how we met them till today. But these were stories that were told to Ogongo. As at that time, what had ravaged the whole area? Like I said, there are 9 high chiefs in Ikogosi. They are the kingmakers. How did they become 9? There were 9 villages. So the high chiefs, present high chiefs, were kings of their little villages then. But after the war, they decided to come together and have a formidable army that will be able to resist external aggressors. So they came together and they were living together. So there would be internal rancors here and there. They decided to make one of them, who was a prince, their king. So they decided to pick on Ogongon, the great hunter, who was a prince and not really one of them, So that is how we have the Obawash. And the 9 former kings now became the kingmakers, who will be able to choose among the princes. So they became the high chiefs of Ikogosi. See? So along the line, other kings were made, but Ogongon was now seen as the first real king of the United Ikogosi. But in reverence to Olosun, who was coordinating the villages before Ogongon came, they referred to him as the first leader of the town. So if you have a list of Ikogosi kings, you see Olosun followed by Ogongon before the other kings. That is that about Ikogosi One Spring. Actually, where we're standing used to be a groove. In the 30s, in the 1930s, my dad was a kid. I learned the mother, my mom's dad, my grandmother, told me that there was a man, a wise-skinned, the first wise-skinned man that came before Reverend Maggie. Nobody got to know his name. He came, I was warned. He wanted to come to the source. They warned him that nobody could go there as at that time. But because of his whatever, he just went there. But he died mysteriously. It was his dog that called people's attentions to, because there were no vehicles then. So he walked down from Ogotun down to this place. So on the footpath, he maybe entered the bush and maybe to ease himself, he died. So nobody got to know his identities till today. He was buried, just like a dog. We were made to believe that people should not step on the source of the One Spring. Even Reverend Maggie, before he became a friend, he became friendly with the deity. I saw the only thing that made me to believe that this water is a living spring in 2016, August 2016. We came because we who are young chiefs and a bit educated, we felt that, okay, if not because of the presence of this water in Ikogosi, this town would have been tucked in the jungle. Nobody would have known the name of this town. So we felt, okay, we were indebted to this water. Let's come and just say thank you to the deities if they exist. So we came, and just there, over there, the elderly woman that one of the people I interviewed, I have a video interview of the woman, but she spoke, she's well over 100. She was the only priestess who could chant the Oriki. What do they call Oriki? Panjerics or something like that. Now, this woman, it was 2 of us, myself and Chibaleshi, that went to invite this woman. When we got there, I was the inquisitive one. I've always been very inquisitive. I asked, Mommy, Mama, how do we get to know the deity has answered our prayers? She said, it's either 2 things, my chief. It's either you will hear his voice. I said, which ancient voice? I said, I don't want to hear any voice. Or you say the steam, but she referred to it as smoke. So when we got there that day, like 300 people were here from the town. And we chiefs were over there, very close to the railings. This woman knelt down and started chanting and chanting and chanting. All of a sudden, we saw a steam, like a balloon of steam, as if when you are boiling water and you open the pot, the sudden rise of steam. We saw it right from there, where you see those falling palm trees. A balloon of steam, just people scampered. Me, I was there. I had goosebumps all over me. And I felt as if my head was like times 10 of this. But I didn't run. We did not run. But other women, men that were here, they all ran away. But when it got to a certain level, it was like there was a suction that sucked it, disappeared. And the woman started chanting, Oshi Baba, Oshi, Oshi. You know, we all shouted, chanted his orikis, and from that day, I believe that it's indeed a living spring. See where we are standing. Here used to be the gate to the groove. When we talk of Peregun trees are used to mark important landmarks in Yoruba land, in the whole of Africa. Here is one Peregun, here is another one. That is another one behind you there. Now, this one here was the gate with a barricade of palm frond or white cloth, so that ordinary people, apart from the initiates, would be able to go into the grove. At the base of the two Peregun shrine, I can't be counting what was used or were used. Only one item, a white cock. Why not, if I say it? Because people don't worship it anymore. There will be a white cock. They will just slaughter the white cock, put in a pot with water and put fire underneath and leave. After some time, they will come back. It will have been seasoned by benevolent spirit. It will have been seasoned and brought down from the pot. From the whatever, ready for consumption. Only the initiates were allowed to touch the meat. See, but religion has eroded Christianity and Islam. They eroded beliefs and traditions. So even when I was a kid, a little over 50 years ago, we were made to believe that if you plucked in a rope beside anywhere around here, it will turn to a snake. So we never dared it. And even the Kabesi and some chiefs in town, they still claim that they see the deity in their dreams, telling them that the sun never used to shine on his head, but the sun is shining now. That is why we planted 50. If you look behind you, you see one of the trees there. They are still like about 10 feet, but they will still become very big trees. Come to think about the trees, like I said earlier, most of the trees were planted by the deities. I used to have, during the first time that they brought an investor here, there was a Canadian colleague of mine. We worked together. I told him that, well, most of these trees were planted by the deities, according to the myth, for healing purposes. It was like, I said, okay. Last year, we brought a researcher from FRIN, Forestry Research Institute, who knows about all these trees. And without going into the bushes, just around the clear areas, he was able to identify about 65 different trees of high medicinal values. 65. Most of them are extinct. That was when my Canadian colleague believed, Chief, I think you are right. Of high medicine. There is a particular tree there. The man pointed to it, he said, Chief, see this tree. If you suffer insomnia, that's sleeplessness, just uproot the roots. Take some of the roots, soak it in water, and drink, but drink just very little. I said, what if I drink a lot of it? So you not sleep to death. That it will cure insomnia. I believe. Look at this tree here. That is camwood. Camwood. We have all of them here. So the story is on and on and on and on like that. Welcome again to Ikogosi One Spring. Go see Ikogosi. Thank you very much.